welcome back. Well, PZ Cousins has joined the likes of GlaxoSmithKline to announce plans to stop operations in Nigeria. So while banks seem to be counting their gains with the foreign exchange unification policy of the central bank, companies in the manufacturing sector, and especially these days in the consumer goods, are counting their losses and exiting the country. Perhaps it's not just the FX unification policy that's affecting them. We have Mr. Emmanuel Onosomi, lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services, in the studio, joining us for this conversation. Mr. Onosomi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much,
this morning. Yeah,
it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Even though it's not very good news, especially from the consumer goods these days, we are still waiting for GlaxoSmithKline to share the scheme of exiting their shareholders, and then we have the one of PZ Cousins.
You know, and the manufacturing sector is the biggest player when it comes to the real sector that we're talking about. And when we talk about development of any economy and the sustainability of any economy, is how well the real sector is doing. You know, so if manufacturing business are struggling in Nigeria, it's something that should require a state of emergency, you know, from the government. Looking at the numbers, you know, it started sometimes in January, you know, when the Naira started, you know, fluctuating very heavily, you know, and it became unsustainable for the CBN to continue their management activities of the Naira, you know. Then after the announcement by the, you know, by the president for the unification, and then the subsequent, you know, communication from the CBN, it then became a free fall. Although, you know, Analyst has put it that is a good policy, you know, that may pan out to be very good in the future, but the immediate effect of it during this gestation period of the policy is actually, you know, leaving the manufacturing sector in a bad shape. If you look at, you know, the numbers and running through the statistic, you know, performance for the first half of the year, you know, dipped by over 350% in that sector. You know, if you are a shareholder in that sector, you should not be expecting any dividend this year, you know. And, you know, that's, if you dig deeper, you will see that the biggest cause of that is the foreign exchange impact arising from commitment to loans. You know, manufacturing sector, you have a lot of debt. you are taking, you know, both foreign debt and local debt. You know, but the translation error will come definitely from the foreign debt portion of the loan. Also look at other obligations towards their, you know, maybe parent company in the use of intangibles, the trademarks, and all that. So it leaves. Although if you look at their results, some of them said they still have cash to do business because they've not paid those obligations yet. But when they pay those obligations,
including the CBN,
you said it?
Including the CBN.
Yeah. So they still have cash for operation. Most of those multinationals, or the like of Nestle, Cadbury, you know, they will have cash for operation. But from a profitability standpoint, you know, it's not just looking very attractive.
Is there something that should have been put in place before that announcement of the unification? Because even as we speak, I think in the official market, we still have Naira for about 700. Meanwhile, the parallel is about 900. So we still do not have a unified market yet.
Okay, so, you know, some people have argued for managed floats, while some people have argued...
I think we're still managing floats.
Yeah,
the CBN still intervenes, so it's a managed float.
So if what is in place is a managed float, you know, it has not really helped the manufacturing sector based on what we are saying, you understand? Because if it's still a managed flow, as communicated by the CBN, like you alluded to, that means that there need to be some other intervention from that sector, because what it means that the CBN cannot manage it effectively to keep this sector floating, you understand? So other things that shareholders in that space or players, investors in that place are advocating for is the possibility of granting some short-term waivers for that industry so that you can still maintain the attractiveness of that industry. Otherwise, more people may be making the decision to leave the environment while we are still looking for other foreign direct investment into the economy. So there may be need for some short-term intervention, maybe a tax holiday for a period, you know, just to cushion the effect in that sector, or maybe some other waivers that the government will consider for that particular sector.
Yeah, but waivers when the government is looking for revenue, it's also a difficult one.
Yeah, so it's a balance. You understand? You cannot, in a bid of looking for revenue and then shut down everything, the revenue will stop. You understand? So going concern of business, especially in the risk sector, and not just about revenues alone, these people are the people that employ the majority of Nigerians. So if you are going for revenue at the expense of their survivor, then you have more people on the street looking for jobs. And looking at our unemployment rate, although it has been recalibrated, it's still something in the streets that we know that we need to get people in the proper working environment. And these guys are the one filling the gap for us. So it is something that the government needs to deliberately look at. I know that Mr. Wale Edun, the current Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy, is well versed, is experienced, and these are areas that we need to look so that we don't send potential investor away looking at the numbers from that sector.
Yeah, it's good you mentioned the minister's name now, because when you talk about tax reform, then we think of Mr. Taiwo Oyedele and his committee.
Yeah.
But of course, because it has to get the cooperation of other sectors,
they have to work together.
So then the coordinating minister has that responsibility, because even if the tax reform committee has a great idea, because it's going to affect revenue of government,
so
you do need some conviction. Exactly. So there's a lot of coordination to be done, if we have to get it right. And it's really a sensitive time for the country, that any wrong step could move the country very far away from peace and prosperity.
Yeah, personally, they cannot do it in silos. And that's why, both the coordinating Minister of the Economy, Ministry of Finance, and other key ministry in the economy, they have to come together with Mr. Taiwo Oyedele's team, and look at it from an holistic perspective. We want to encourage FDI. We want to increase our tax revenue. How do we strike this balance, to still get things running? I strongly believe that the policy of the CBN is to float the naira. I am an advocate for full float, but to the extent that government is committed to responding to the critical sector of the economy and provide some of specific incentives that will keep those aspects of the economy going.
Yeah, I guess the other side of the conversation will also be, they say necessity is the mother of invention. Sure. If at this time the country is being squeezed for FX, it should also motivate people or companies to look inwards and see, instead of demanding some of these ingredients or raw materials from outside the country, are there things we can easily produce to fill in these gaps?
Yeah, give it to the manufacturing sector in Nigeria. They've done a lot. There was a time that the CBN actually, mandated some backward integration program before you can access forex. And a number of these people have invested in that process. We cannot mention that. A number of people have substituted their raw materials where it's available in local quantities, And it's a going conversation. We cannot get there in a jiffy, Looking at our agricultural sector, it has not fully matured to cater for the input need. And also other allied and chemical industry has not fully matured to cater for the input need in that particular industry. So reliance of imports will still be very significant. But what we've seen players within that industry does recently is that they are making moves to hedge. If I'm going to be committing to some dollar or forex obligation, can I possibly hedge? And they are looking towards the financial institution, and the financial institution is also, where am I going to get a fund? And you can see Fidelity Bank in the news yesterday making an attempt to raise additional capital to see whether they can assist with some hedging, as part of the strategy to keep the system running. Also, First Bank is also in the move of raising additional capital. So those we just have to be creative, and the government supporting to ensure that the sector keep running, because this sector is the risk sector that needs to continue to run.
Yeah, well, we saw promises from the president's trip in India. We'll be getting numbers and news releases, of billionaires, Indian billionaires who want to come to the country. But I wonder how fast we can have that, because the $3 billion loan crude that we got, I think that has waned off. So we need a more sustainable investment that will build in the country.
So, Ine, you are very spot on that. We love the news, those news to break. Oh, India is coming in with investments. NMPC has signed a $3 billion, with Afrexim Bank, But the implementation of this thing has to also be fast-tracked. You cannot leave it on the page of paper when the economy is suffering. So the government has to be deliberate enough, make enough communication on how to implement this and how people can access it, and what are the criteria to access it so that the economy can continue to run. As of today, it's evident out there that we need some serious emergency intervention.
All right, well, we do hope to get it real soon. And we have ministers that have been sworn in now. Everyone is looking out to them. We just talked about the solid minerals.
Yes.
And the whole promises. I remember the minister, Mr. Delalake, saying that Nigeria has no business being broke. And yet at this time we're broke. So I guess it's on him also to make a difference.
Yeah, we expect so much from this set of crew. One of the things that have been alluded to the president is his ability to select smart and intelligent people to drive the economy. And believe that when they get their policies, and their strategic action into place, maybe things will continue to move in the
And the president
direction.
has also promised that, any minister that does not perform well
will be sacked.
All right, I guess that should be a motivation for the ministers to sit up. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Emmanuel Nosomi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're the lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.